Welcome back to the channel. Today I'm in the Coppermine Valley near Coniston and we're going to do 4 Wainwrights in the area. So that is Wetherlam, then over to Swirl, Brim Fell, and then finally we'll get over to the Old Man of Coniston. Right, let's check it out on the map. Taking the track behind the sun in Coniston, we work our way up to Coppermine Valley, taking some time to explore the social history of the area. Continuing up the valley, we ascend Wetherlam, and this will give us most of our height for the day. Once we get near the top, fantastic views open up to us, and once summiting, it's a down and up to our second Wainwright of the day, Swirl. The walk over to Brim Fell is a steady one, and there's plenty of time to take in the views. The Old Man of Coniston is a great favourite, and after summiting our 4th Wainwright of the day, we head down past Low Tarn, then see the Coppermine buildings and workings. Eventually we join the track from this morning and work our way back to the sun in Coniston. We're starting off today at the Sun, which is a 16th century inn, and we're just heading round the back. Here's us starting down the first bit, then onto the fells. I did a route involving the Old Man of Coniston about a year ago, but that's the Old Man of Coniston in Dow Crag, so it's quite a different route. And it starts a little bit higher up at the One Scar car park. So if you want to check out that one, I'll put it in the description for you. Our first bridge here is over Mealy Gill. And there it is. Quite strong today after yesterday's rains. Today's a really nice day. It'll be around 21 degrees, so quite a hot one for the lakes. And it's June, we're coming into summer. To start off here, it's working up to the youth hostel, so it's quite a straightforward path, if a little wet in the middle. As we're getting some height, just down here we've got Church Beck, and we'll follow that a little bit up. You can probably hear it in the background. If you want to do the Old Man but on a shorter route, you can go from the One Scar car park. That's a little bit higher up. So from where I was at the Sun, the road just heading straight up, and that'll get you there. And again, that's the way I went from Coniston up to the Old Man of Coniston, round to Dow Crag, and back down. This one today should take around 6 hours, so plan a little more than half a day. As usual, all the timings and maps and things are in the description, so if you want a bit more information, just pop in there. We can hear Church Beck as it comes down, maybe see a bit of white water there. This has a couple of waterfalls on it as we head up, and it's got a little dam at the top, so again, that's where our bridge is. So there it is, Coniston Waterfall. Starting off across the bridge because I'll do Wetherlam first. There we go, and we're in the Coppermine Valley. I was undecided which way around to do this, but it's quite busy. It's 11 o'clock in the afternoon now, and I think if I do Wetherlam first, then work my way over to Swirl, then it should be a bit quieter by the time I get over to the Old Man. Look at that coming down. Absolutely amazing. It's in full flow today. Wow. If you stay on the other side, this is the track that takes you up to the Old Man first. As I say, you can go either way, but we'll go into the Coppermines area first, then we'll head up to Wetherlam. For reference, there are actually 2 youth hostels in Coniston. There's the one here that I'm going to, and there's one actually in the village. So if you book, make sure you go to the right one, because when I booked it last time, I ended up going to the wrong one and walking there, and having to walk about 2 miles back to the village. And that was when we did the Cumbria way. Here we go then. Land of power and all. There's certainly some more about it. Filled with noise, dust and machines, where people heaved and hammered for copper from the ground. All right then. Is our social history, and we'll see those mines and some of the workings on the way round. That's our sign, and we're just heading onto the tracks up here. Ahead of us we've got Swirl, and that is one of our Wainwrights for today. And overall on this circuit we're going to pick up 4. So we'll get to Wetherlam, work our way over to Swirl How, Brim Fell, then Old Man of Coniston. This is the copper mines area, and you can just see a lot of the spoil there in the middle. Good thing about doing it this way around is you can just see the runoff coming down as a cascade from Lever's Waterbeck. So that's a dammed area a little bit further up. And as I thought, this side is significantly quieter. Look at that. The Coppermine cottages are down here at the split. But we're just going to get a bit of height for today. Start heading our way up. That's quite heavily suggested. The social history of the area is copper mining, and during the last century for sure it was one of the main industrial activities around the Lake District. Now mainly farming, but back then minerals were a main source of income, so it was a lot more active with people coming in for the day, carrying out the mining activity and then working back to the villages. And you can sometimes see the telltale signs of that. You'll be able to see the excess down there, which is from the mining activity, and you've got a mine just in the distance. When we're coming down the Old Man later, you'll see some of the workings and some of the old buildings. We'll keep in the same direction towards Swirl How. And the reason I want to go this way is because I just want to have a look over the fells as we're going up, a little bit more close quarters. We'll come across Lever's Water as we go up, and that's an artificial body of water, so it's dammed at one end and gets the runoff from the bowl around the Old Man and Swirl How. As we're heading up, the Old Man of Coniston is just here, and you'll be able to see a little distinctive cairn on the top because that is quite large when you're there. Then over to Swirl How, right at the end of the run, and then we'll be coming down this way. But today we're doing it this way around, so up to Wetherlam, which is just out of our sight at the moment. Then we'll work our way across the tops to the Old Man, and then start heading the way down through the mine works. Part of the reason for the damming and the runoff is to power this water wheel down here, which operates some of the machinery in the area. So apart from the natural resource of the copper, the other advantage of having the mines here is the steep runoff, so you get quite a lot of power from the water coming through. Still some noticeable slab, look at that. Absolute belter. From this side you really do get a good view of what we're about to do, and I think it's a good choice to come up this way. Most of the times I go around the other way, but often ditch out at Lever's Water and just head back to the car park. Because it's quite hot today, I thought I'd take with me about 2 litres of water, so that's what I've got. And again, before I start any of the walks, I make sure you have a good drink so you start off hydrated and you're not using your water immediately on the walk. There are on this walk though places to fill up, but I would make sure you got a filter bottle if you're going to do that. If you want a close look at the mine when you're down here, you can do, but then you just cross the bridge and you head up this track just at the side. That'll bring you to where we are, just at this old building. Sometimes why Wainwrights picked the 214 mountains he has to be Wainwrights, we're not quite sure. Brim Fell is one of those ones where if you're on the top you'll think, why have you picked this one, there's nothing going on. But this is Old Man of Coniston here, and this is Brim Fell. So on the side of it, the brim essentially means you're at the lip or the face of something, and that is the brim. So if you're coming from this side, it gives a completely different character to when you walk across it at the top. This is black sails going up at the side here. And with black sails, it's not a Wainwright, but it does give a great view of the valley as you're heading towards Swirl How. Here we've got the marker for the 18th century Bonza East Whale House. So this is very much copper mining territory all round. Wow. You've got a great view down there, back to Coniston Water. There we go, another one. So thundering water turns the vast creaking water wheel that drains damp mines and heavy wagons for copper ore from deep underground shafts and tunnels. It certainly does. These paths are pretty stable most of the way around. It's the typical gravelly dirt path you get in the lakes. So another small bridge to negotiate. Hello, you enjoying the scenery? Just having a bit of dinner. This is Red Delbeck as we're coming across. So a small wooden bridge. And then we've got options really. We can go up to Black Sails this way across the top, or we can stay in the valley and work our way to Wetherlam. There's the Wheel of Misfortune just ahead, so we'll have a little look at that. Here then is another legend, just slightly off, and it's the opposite of Saturday Night Entertainment. It's the Wheel of Misfortune. And in this case, engine man Thomas Milliken operated the water wheel with his stone wheel pit, pumped water and winch door out of Thriddle shaft. On the morning of Wednesday, 21st of October 1850, Thomas and his 4 sons are working the mines. It says every morning, Milliken makes sure the wheels power the pumping rods until the mine is drained. Then the rods run up to the shaft along the stone ramped incline besides the heavy winching chain, and the ore buckets have to be winched up the shaft at exactly the right time to keep production flowing. An order was shouted from the pumps for Thomas to stop the wheel. When it kept turning, someone runs to find him. They see his mangled body in the wheel pit. Ooh, nasty. Did he slip into the fast-running wheel while greasing the axle? We'll never know. What a mistake to make her after 13 years. Anyway, let's have a little look at it. So that is where the wheel would have been. Quite quiet today. So what I'll do is I'll head up the valley so I can show you this route, and then we'll save Black Sails for another day. But it is a great look over the valley, so well worth going to. My legs today though want something a bit gentler, so we'll just head up here. At the top actually, if you go up Black Sails, there's just a down and an up to Wetherlam, so it's not like you can't get to it. It's quite a short distance away. The industrial activity around here is a lot more exposed than if you go on the Old Man, and many of you will have seen the route up there and a few buildings that are around. But mining all sorts of minerals really in the Lake District were the main trade at one point. This is our surface as we walk through the valley. So a couple of options, but it does go a little bit more squelchy. It's kind of faint, but you can pick out the paths through this pasture. A few sheep there having a graze. Hello, having your dinner. There we go. You can see it's very bouldery in here. These have probably been dropped as the glaciers has moved through the valley. Wow, and a lot of the tarn you see in the Lake District, it's exactly for that reason, where the glacier, as it retreated, has scooped out any of the rocks. As we go up the valley, if you look back there, you can see Coniston Water just in the distance. So that accompanies us as we walk up. And I didn't mention, but where I parked earlier on, I just parked slightly up from the sun, and there's a few parking spaces there and down that road. So I managed to get those for free. But again, you can park in the village itself a bit lower down. It is, although busy at the start of this walk, this section I'd expect to be pretty clear because it really isn't somewhere people tend to go. Tend to walk up, look at the buildings and walk back. Well, it's quite a unique landscape. Look at that. Wetherlam is just ahead of us as we work forward, so you can see it in view. Then we just got to work our way up the banking and we're there. Although it's lesser visited, Wetherlam itself has 14 pages in the book, so it's quite a significant piece of work, and he mainly goes and discusses the mining around the area, of course, at the time, which is a big part of the history. Just navigate these stones. So it's certainly not one to be ignored, and it's got a lot of interest, especially the old mine shafts around. Wow, it's a bit marshy, you can probably hear it under my feet. And no surprise, cotton grass around where the marsh is. Red Delbeck is still aside us here, and we're going to trace it all the way up to Wetherlam. The presence of the back does tell you that with the steepness of the cliffs around me, they're going to come down, and that's what's making this section wet. So they're all working their way into the beck, and then that's heading down the mountain. It's a warm day. If it does get through to my boots, then I'm okay with it. In the interest of fairness, I'll tell you, it is a bit boggy around here. So, yeah, you just got to work your way across. That's our current obstacle. That looks like it. So yeah, I've definitely been on drier surfaces. Whoa. For information, Coniston is around 100 metres in height, and we're at about 450 now. Then we start a steeper ascent to the top, so that'll start to pick up and be noticeable. So that is our new ascent, and we are going to notice that. It is around 400 metres, so a couple of stops on the way. You can see by the presence of white water, that's going to mean steepness. A little step across. Although this section is much steeper, it's also much drier. So that's the bonus. Get all this coming down the side to have a look at. You can tell by the path it's not really that well walked around these parts, so you can expect quite a quiet valley. I've seen about 4 people since getting past the buildings. So yeah, a quieter walk in the lakes, even on a busy day. Can't argue with that though, can you? Bit of waterfall action. As we're heading up, Red Delbeck is really taking the sting out of this for us because we've got it there at the side. Then looking back, you've also got the view of it chasing down into the valley, and eventually it'll end up in Coniston water. Whenever I'm doing the Old Man and then over to Swirl, I always think, well, I get Wetherlam as well, but often I ditch off at Lever's Water. So if you go that way around, or indeed this, you fancy getting back a bit more quickly, then you can just turn off at Lever's Water and head down the track. Tell you what, have a look at that as you're coming up. Sun's getting out now, and a bit later in the day it'll pick up a little bit of wind, but nothing to worry about. And the sun is going to brighten. Cloud base is really high today, and I checked all that before I came out today, so it should be about 100 metres above the biggest thing around here, which is the Old Man. The Old Man is just there on the look back. Wow, what a view. This climb's quite a big one. About 150 metres to go. Black sails above us here, so you can see that if you went up the ridge that way, you get the views down to Lever's Water, and then it's just this little dip and then up to Wetherlam. So there are a few ways to do it, and I've not come this way before because last time I did this I came from the top across the Old Man and went down. Another time I've done it, I've gone from the Cockley Beck side just over the top here and come that way. So you can hit it in a few different ways because it's in the middle of quite a heavy, rich Wainwright patch. If you're wondering about the name Wetherlam, because it's a bit of an odd one, nothing to do with the weather. Wether sheep in Old English is a male sheep that's had the old conkers removed. So that's what a wether is. So essentially it might be somewhere that they kept the lambs, the male lambs, that had the little gentleman's operation. A few gentlemen crossing their legs across the country. There's a little mountain friend working his way up. It's going to take you ages, mate. It's the end of the climb. It's starting to round off a little bit now. But what a climb. Anyway, so there's a few options to come up, but we're nearly at the top. Once we get to this little col, then we should be able to just head right and that'll take us to Wetherlam. There's the odd cairn marker to just guide us up. There's another mountain friend on his way back down. But that scenery behind me is epic. What a view. Can't wait to get up here, take a look over the valleys and the surrounding area. On this walk, just to mention it, once we've done this initial climb, that's most of the hike for today, because we've done it sort of all in one go. Gradually to start off with for the first 400 or so, and then it gets a bit steeper. Inquisitive sheep there. We're at the flatter stuff, so a bit further on, and then we are at Wetherlam. Right, we're cresting this particular section, and the mountains have just opened up in front of us. So let's have a look at those from the top. So you've got Fell Pike and Fell, and then nearer to us you've got Fell. So we've done quite a lot of those in that range. You've immediately got essentially the Langdale range across here, then you're over to the Fell Massive in the distance. Heading up the final section, it's really rounding off in terms of height. I've probably got about 50 metres to go. But what a view out to the side. Absolutely stunning. So just to add to that, you've got Glaramara, High Spy, and then over to Skiddaw in the distance. Fairly regular path, and we've got the cairn markers to help us out if it's claggy. And a little bit more windy for me today, but fairly easy to get up. There's our summit ahead, just behind this cairn. Then when we get up here, I will show you the view, which is spectacular. Look at that. Wow. So that is down to Windermere. Absolutely brilliant. What a top. A subscriber actually asked me to cover this, and here it is. What an amazing view out. It's one of the best I've seen. Let's see what it looks like from the air. Well, we're heading our way off and getting towards Swirl. So we've done a lot of the hike for today, and from now on it's more or less gentle going up and down the tops. This is our new range, and you can just see ahead of us there, Swirl. So we'll head down across. It's a bit of a steep up to get up there. Once we're up though, we're pretty much at a stable platform on the top. Once you're up, the views are absolutely spectacular all the way around. This is me coming across with the Langdale Valley ahead, and then we're going to work our way down over towards our next one, which is Swirl. The walk over to Swirl, it is fairly straightforward on this path, so nice and easy to follow, but the views out to the side are absolutely breathtaking. So if you're thinking of doing this one, then this is a good way of doing it. Looks a bit more craggy on this section, but actually the path is still fairly straightforward. It does give us quite a dramatic view out though. Swirl, which is just straight ahead of us here, it's got great cars at the side, and that is another Wainwright in the area. Quite famously, that has a crash site of a bomber on the side of it, and that was during World War II, where a few of the crew perished. So as a memorial, some of the crash remnants have been left up there, and that's testament to those guys. The wind is picking up a bit, so let's take advantage of that with some cool valley shots. Here's a dramatic view out, so well worth picking this little path to get the views in. There we are, just appearing in front of us, and there's our path back up. So the rise is around 200 metres, which is noticeable, but it'll be all right. And then I expect it to be busier on this side because the Old Man's a popular meeting point for Dow Crag or coming over this way, or indeed if you're coming over from Great Cars. The wind's picking up in this gap. We've just got a view down the valley. So this is what we get. Levers Water's just here, which I mentioned earlier, and then Coniston Water in the background. Wow. So we're heading for this massive cairn, and then we're on our way up. Slightly scrabbly to finish this, but it is honestly dead stable. Then we hit our marker. Once we get to the cairn, we're travelling back up. You can at this point, if you want to, and you think that's enough, or you know you've got the clag coming in or something, you can just head back this way and skirt the edge of Levers Water. Then you'll pick up the path going down into the village, and that is a really straightforward path. So any issues, you can take that as a ditch out option. But for us, we're up here. I have come down this way quite a few times, but it is a bit easier going up in terms of it's quite scrabbly coming down sometimes. So a decent up, but you'll notice it. Around 150 to go metres, and just past that big lump behind me. And aside from the view ahead, there's another notable rock face. So I just kind of count those going up. You should have 3 big ones. As we get to this second bit, we've walked up from the village, which is behind here, up in the valley, which is the next valley. Then we got to Wetherlam, tracked along the side here, and that takes us to this point. And then just up there, a bit more, probably 100 metres or so, and then we'll get to Swirl. Wow, it's a fun one. I've never been on here without the wind, and that's actually where the name comes from, because Swirl is literally about the swirling winds, it's thought, around it. The how bit is supposed to be related to the Norse word, I think it's pronounced hygge, but I'll put it on the screen for you. But swirl then is swirling wind around the hill. So hygge is hill, and in my view, it couldn't be named any better. Levers Water behind me, it was originally used for hundreds of years to help service the copper mines and provide water for power. But it was dammed up in 1717 to give it a more reliable nature to the water source, and so that they could control it a bit more as things took off in the mining industries. So yeah, even that piece of landscape is due to the copper mining works. Here we go then, levelling out a bit more. Here's a bit of a test of this one. And then we get to what I call lump 3, which is this. Right, once we've got to this, we can see in the distance, that's our final ascent. The wind is up to about 25 miles an hour, as predicted. And if you're thinking that sounds all right, it's probably about max for my drone, 25, 30, something like that. After that, it really drains the battery. And the other thing about it is my drone, when it's in high winds, it doesn't return to home, it just lands itself if it gets stuck or runs out of battery. So then you have to walk and go and get it. I'll do some little videos on the gear that I'm using, just like 5 minutes or so, because people ask me what I'm using and what settings I'm using, that kind of thing. So I'll do a few of those. I'll pop them out in the week just so they don't interrupt the new main walk on Sunday. That's how I look back. So I've cleared those 3 areas. This is the main ascent to get to the top. Here we go then. So it's a bit of a clamber, but it's not really what I'd call a scramble, and it's not listed as a scramble, but you do need your hands, or it helps anyway. Gloves are useful if it's bad conditions. We've got some fast moving clouds, which means it is windy up there. I do have my usual set of jackets, so a mid layer which is windproof but not waterproof, then a waterproof on top of that. So if I need those, I can go get them. The issue is really, if you're up here and suddenly twist my ankle, I might be sat here for an hour, so even though it's nice when you're moving, if you stop you'll suddenly get cold. Always worth having those things in the bag. I'm cresting it now. Wow. There it is then, at 3.5 hours into my walk, Swirl How. And I think we've got it to ourselves. There we go. Wow, what a top. As I say, just a short walk over to Great Cars if you want to get it. Wow. Well, for us, we'll be heading over this way towards Brim Fell and the Old Man. This is Dow Crag on this side. From Swirl How, it's a fairly straightforward walk over to Brim Fell and then onwards to the Old Man of Coniston. Again, Brim Fell really was named because of the brim at this side, and of course it is a fell. So if you're wondering why it's a Wainwright, because a lot of people walk over the top of it and don't even notice it's there, because it's just literally the piece of land between the Old Man and Swirl How. But yeah, it is a Wainwright, so an easy one to claim on this route. Across the top between Swirl How and the Old Man, it's a cracking ridge and you get great views all the time, so that's the main advantage for it, and probably also why Brim Fells gets a mention in Wainwright's books, because it is the same view in effect. You can see in the distance just on the right, that's Dow Crag, and that is a bit more craggy than the Old Man. It's got quite a steep face in it on this side. Great How Crags is on the side, and that is all the way over to Black Sails on this side, and then Wetherlam in the distance. Continue across on this nice pleasant walk. Now the wind's died down a little bit. It's got to be said, in good weather, this top section is absolutely brilliant. You can just see the very easy path going forward. Easy to navigate, fantastic views down to Coniston on that side and Coniston Water. Levers Water just appearing there for us. Then on the other side, Seathwaite Tarn. And there's 2 Seathwaites in the Lake District, so make sure you're at the right one. Someone did ask me if they had a video on the Old Man from Seathwaite, which I haven't yet, but might work on that one. We've been dropping steadily down to Levers House, which is just here, so right in the dip. Actually, you can come off that way and go towards Levers Water. So if you fancy cutting it short for some reason, maybe it's for clag or bad weather or whatever, then that's another way off you can get to. You can get to Levers Water down there and then take the path back into the village. I am planning walks. I do think of a couple of ditch out options just in case things happen. And it's always worth doing that really, because you know, you never know, someone might slip and do something to their ankle, or you need to get off because of bad weather. So if you're out with someone a bit more experienced, then that's a good way of knowing the route a bit more and getting some more information about it. What I do know, however, is if you're going over here, got fantastic views down to Fell, which is just over there. There we go. I'm physically in the dip now, so this is where we've come from. And you come to this cairn. There's another one here. But you can tell you're right in the dip. And that little grassy offshoot is the path down. So if you need to make that, then that's it. But we don't. We're going up here. Whoa. Woo, windy. Our walk up from the dip is 150 metres up. So it's fairly gentle as a gradient. You will notice it though. There it is ahead. So nothing particularly technical, just working our way up. One of you out to the side though. Such a great view up to Brim Fell. So you get that all the time. The path's actually very close to the edge. So, because it's such a steep drop off, it's quite dramatic. That's us heading forward. Because I did it this way round today, it's been quite quiet for me. But it might pick up a bit when it gets to Old Man, because that's the big draw in the area. Plenty of cairns to keep us on track though. On the flat section, just approaching Brim Fell. If you've done any of these Wainwrights, just let me know how you did it and who you did it with, because that gives people more ideas about how they can do this in different ways, or maybe did it like this. Anyway, let me know in the comments. There we go then. Has been quiet, except for a little family of sheep here, all nibbling away. To the side, we've got shots down to Windermere in the distance there, so that's not too far away. That's a nice green patch you've got there. Much better than this rocky stuff, but we are going forward. There we go then. So in the distance, Old Man of Coniston. To the side, looking quite ominous as usual, is Dow Crag, and this is Brim Fell. There we go. But from here, we'll just make it further over. On a clear day like today, you get a shot right down to Coniston itself. See all the boats on Coniston Water. That's us heading up. Looks like the international cairn building competition's been here. There's about 20 cairns going up. It does stop people wandering off because this is quite a broad fell. It's at least 30 metres across. here's our multiple cairns going up, just in case you weren't sure of the way. But it does stop you going off because, you know, you could assume, oh, where's the top again? And then maybe go over to the Dow Crag or something like that. Again, the walk up from Brim Fell is actually quite steady. That's the Old Man cairn just appeared in front of us. And the name comes from Old Man, which is Celtic, and that means high stone. And then Coniston is Connacht's Tun, which is Norse, and that means King's Farm. So it's likely to be high stone near the King's Farm, and it really is a high stone. Down here we've got low water, and this is our path as we work our way back down. Well, let's get summited first. There we go then. Old Man of Coniston. There's Coniston just below us. We'll work our way off. Coniston Water's ahead of us, and then we'll work our way over to the mines before we get finally back into the village. I do tend to walk up the Old Man rather than down it, so going down it'll be a little bit rubbly, but you get a cracking view all the way. So that's it. It's a conservation path, so there's quite well laid blocks in it, but there's some loose stuff as well. Got to be a bit careful as we head down We've just got the edge of Levers Water there, and then the Coniston itself, so we're heading back to there. As you can see, it's fairly stable here. There are some little bits where it's rubbly, so you just need to be cautious. But that's Low Tarn just in front of us. Tarns are left over from the glacial period when the retreating glacier would have scooped all the stones out and left the hollow, and then it gets filled with water. A little further down, or up if you go the other way, it just becomes a bit more shaly on this path. We are getting really close to the tarn now. Low Tarn just here is a favourite amongst wild swimmers. So we'll get past this and then work our way down a little further, and we'll get to the mine buildings as we go down. There are some ornate tunnels there, but I think they're more for storage than actually for anything to do with mining, apart from keeping stuff in. These are some of the older buildings. What you've got down here is some of the abandoned mechanisms for hauling the copper up and down the mountain. So those were in use from 1740 to 1950, but abandoned now. And I do talk about them a bit more on the other Old Man of Coniston video, so if you want to have a look at that, I'll just put it in the link. You can see this well laid out path here, so it's pretty grippy in the middle. The lower set of buildings is a bit better kept, so I'll just show these from above. And there they are for us. And you can see the old, what must have been a winching mechanism. There's a bit closer, so the old office and some of the outbuildings, riving shed over there. Wainwright gives mention to them in his book, and he says he doesn't mind that, you know, the heritage is there, and he doesn't think it really detracts from the landscape, and in fact it adds something about social history, which I think is true. You can see the extensive work that's gone on here to keep the path going, and it's not necessarily for our benefit, it's for the benefit of the miners. Very much getting to the lower level, and soon we'll see the split off for the car park. In fact, it's just come into view, so the car park is over there. We're not heading for it because we're in the village. We're instead just going to take the track to the side, and that'll take us through a field, and again it'll join the road we came on. If you enjoyed the video, it helps me to click on the like, and if you're not subscribed and want to see more of these, then just click on subscribe in the corner, and you don't have to pay for it. It's just literally like following somebody, so whenever you do that, it just means you get notified when I release another video. So it just keeps you up to date and stops you having to search for things. Anyway, we're heading down and we'll get to the pub. As we're coming around, the buildings for the Coppermine Valley just down here. This will take you around to the One Scar car park, so we're not there, we're in the village, so we're going to head towards the buildings down here. The path I'm on now is the one I pointed out right at the start of the video when I said that's where we'll come down, and if you like, that is where we went up on the other side of the valley there. These are all the mine buildings just below, and some of the wheels from the copper industry. Look at that though, the sea of purple and green. Foxgloves are out in force. This last section is a pretty easy field walk, and we're just working our way back down to the village. Oh. You recognise this section, so we're just on this side before, and the bridge is just here. Here's our bridge from this morning, and waterfall. Still going.